170 million people, and they have a very important strategic relationship with China, a strategic relationship with India, a strategic relationship with Russia. China is Bangladesh's main partner, investing billions in the Belt and Road Initiative. And Bangladesh has been building strong ties with India and with Russia, and was wanting to join BRICS, as I mentioned. This is obviously a threat to Western imperialism, to the Western-oriented OCGFC. So what's the result? Sheikh Hasina resigns. The army takes over. They establish an interim government. The interim government is going to be comprised of hand-picked individuals, probably with ties to Western powers. They'll crack down on dissent. They'll crack down on protest, using the pretext of maintaining order to silence any opposition. The student protesters may have gotten them into power, but once they're in power, they're not going to have very much tolerance for the student protesters. I mean, we can look at, you can go back as far as you want. You can go back to 1953, when the CIA overthrew the government of Mossadegh in Iran. That led to an interim government that cracked down on dissent. They cracked down on political opposition, the National Front, and so on. Same in Chile in 1973, when the CIA backed a coup, which led to an interim government that led to crackdowns on trade unions, on student organizations, and left-wing parties, and so forth. This is just, as I say, this is the pattern. When you become familiar with the pattern, you can recognize it. And once the pattern starts being implemented, you know what the next steps are going to be. You know where that's going to end up, just like watching someone fall down the stairs. So what I would expect is they'll implement economic shock therapy on Bangladesh, privatizing state-owned enterprises, opening up the economy to Western corporations, just like in Poland in the 1990s, when the IMF and the World Bank imposed shock therapy, leading to mass privatization, deregulation, trade liberalization, and so forth, which benefited Western corporations and local elites. And just like even in Russia, a lot of people don't remember this, because you think of Russia in 2024, you don't remember what it was like in 1992. The IMF imposed shock therapy on Russia, leading to mass privatization, deregulation, trade liberalization, and so forth, which benefited Western corporations and local oligarchs. And then I suppose at a certain point, you will have elections in Bangladesh. Those elections will be rigged to ensure that Western-backed candidates win, and this rigged election process will be monitored and validated by Western organizations who will assure you that you have a vibrant democracy. And this, again, is something that happens repeatedly. This is why you kind of already know what's going to happen, because we've seen the story play out many, many times. The new government, whether it's under, what's his name, Mohammed Yunus, or some other Western puppet, the government will pursue aggressive privatization, deregulation, trade liberalization, benefiting Western corporations and local elites at the expense of the majority of the population. They will align Bangladesh's foreign policy with Western interests, including supporting US-led wars, sanctions, and interventions, just like in Ghana in 1983, when the IMF and the World Bank imposed structural adjustment reforms leading to mass privatization, deregulation, and trade liberalization, which benefited Western corporations and local elites, just like in Argentina in the 1990s, when the IMF and the World Bank imposed structural adjustment programs leading to mass privatization, deregulation, and trade liberalization. You get the point. They will crack down on civil liberties, using the pretext of national security to suppress freedom of speech, freedom of assembly and association, and so on. And obviously China will be marginalized as much as they can. They'll marginalize China as much as they can, and you'll probably be offered, Bangladesh will probably be offered new IMF and World Bank loans, which you will immediately accept, even though you already owe over $12 billion to the IMF and the World Bank. And your new government will agree to the loans and agree to the conditions on the loans, and Bangladesh can forget about any aspirations of achieving economic sovereignty or political independence. That's what you achieved by these protests and by the toppling of Sheikh Hasina. The United States is engaged in a concerted effort to regain its sphere of influence globally, particularly in regions where the BRICS nations are gaining traction. This strategy involves a combination of diplomatic, economic, and military measures and political manipulation, political infiltration, political coercion, political interference to sway countries towards the U.S. orbit and prevent them from falling under the influence of BRICS. We're seeing this all over the world. In Venezuela, the U.S. has been actively seeking to oust Maduro's government, imposing economic sanctions and providing support to the opposition. First it was Juan Guaido, now it's Gonzalez. We saw it, of course, in Pakistan. Everyone is aware of what happened in Pakistan. The U.S. had been pressuring Pakistan to distance itself from China and to distance itself from Russia. Imran Khan didn't do that. They also wanted Pakistan to succumb to IMF control and impose neoliberal reforms, and Imran Khan refused to do that, and he was removed, as we know. Then you can look in Georgia, you can look in Moldova, same in Kazakhstan. In South Africa, I've talked about it many times. The United States backed the Democratic Alliance to infiltrate the ANC government with radical neoliberals. In Bolivia, the U.S. supported the ousting of Evo Morales. In Ecuador, the U.S. supported the protests against Moreno's government. Nicaragua is another example. The U.S. supported protests against Daniel Ortega's government, and so on and so on. The situation in Nicaragua was also originally because of pension reforms. So it was a legitimate grievance based on a policy, which then morphed into calls for the toppling of the government. It just goes on, not to mention the Arab Spring. This is all quite transparent to me. And the reasons for it are obvious. The U.S. wants to collect as many pieces on the board as they can before they completely lose any relevance on the global stage. And before they lose any ability to influence the transition of the global economy to the global south. Bottom line is America is not going to go down without a fight. So they're trying to collect as many pieces on the board as they can before they lose the game completely. So I'm terribly sorry to have to tell Bangladeshis who may be celebrating right now that what you're celebrating today, you are soon going to regret. Your celebrations will soon turn to regret. And you will end up actually missing the days that you lived before this happened. You'll miss the way Bangladesh was before this happened. Because the powers and the players that are operating behind the scenes are worse than the government that you just toppled, and they will do much worse than what was done by the government that just got toppled. So the real struggle in Bangladesh is actually just beginning now. But again, if the pattern plays out, as it has played out everywhere else, the opposition is not likely to even understand what the real struggle is. And even if they do understand what the real struggle is, I would expect that the repression in Bangladesh is going to be so severe and so comprehensive that the national trauma will likely be so bad that most people will simply succumb. Now, you know, everybody told me, because they always tell me this, they told me that I don't understand Bangladesh and that it's a unique situation, that Bangladesh is unique, that Sheikh Hasina's government was uniquely corrupt, and the protests were unique in their nature and so forth. Well, the fact of the matter is that nothing that has happened so far is even remotely unique in any way whatsoever. So now would be the opportunity for Bangladesh to actually assert their uniqueness. And that would mean maturing their opposition, maturing their political understanding, maturing their resistance against what is going to be a much more challenging form of oppression than what they have faced thus far. And I sincerely pray that they will be able to do